Hey everybody, I'm Sergio.
And I'm Kimberly.
And welcome back to the Partner Up Podcast. Kimberly, I have a question. Mm-hmm. If you're an orphan, who's supposed to teach you how to do taxes?
Oh my God. That's a really good question. I have no idea.
Yeah, because I know I learned that I needed to do the taxes were a thing you needed to get done because my parents would be like, we need to get taxes done, right? Mm-hmm. And then eventually they're like, well, you need to make sure you do this on your taxes. And then my parents started guiding me through it. But I don't remember anyone specifically in school being like, this is how you file taxes, or even touching the subject.
Yeah, I remember, I was going to say, we had to have talked about it sometime, but no, taxes, I learned about it, I think, when I was in college. I knew tax was a thing, right? They tax the goods you buy in the store. But I did not know that us as individuals had to pay taxes, go through it yearly because, they take it out of your check. Everyone knew when I got my first job, I saw that the government took out money, but I didn't know that was a guesstimate. And then we had to go back and make sure they did it right, even though it should be on them, but I think school didn't necessarily teach us everything we should learn how to live I don't want to say good life, but live the basics in society, taxes, insurance. I can't think of anything else, but health insurance, home insurance, car insurance. I think when our parents were younger, at least my parents told me this, I think they took home ec classes. That taught them, there was more what were they called? Not main courses.
The only thing electives. I know about home economics classes they were I would see them in Disney Channel movies, and they were always baking.
Yeah, baking. I think my dad told me that they even taught them how to sew in some classes in high school when they were younger.
See, that sounds way more useful. I remember seeing a bunch of different Disney Channel movies again, and they were going through their classes, and their classes was shop. And I'm like, I wish we had shop. Why don't we have shop?
They teach them how to weld too in some classes. you could choose, or I think even had some this isn't I think it's a life skill, how to do your hair and makeup.
And it was a class that we had in our high schools too.
I don't remember.
I remember there was a building in the back, and I remember some students would go back there and they would weld. And
that was an elective. That wasn't an actual.
I wasn't given that elective. I wish
don't remember.
If somebody would have told me that, I wouldn't have chosen what did I choose? Art, I think.
I chose theater.
Oh yeah, you guys had the theater class. We didn't. I remember I almost got to do it, and then they stopped doing it.
They stopped doing it because they would let you guys come to our side of the school, to our school. This is weird. People don't know that we went to different high schools, but they were on the same campus.
Right.
So we had theater, and then I think you guys had a big separate gym, but we had a small gym in our school, and you guys had a building on the outside. So anyways, so we had different classes that were offered at each school, but same basics. But yeah, they didn't. I don't remember having that building at all. Maybe it was just on y'all's side,
perhaps.
Not on our side.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. I guess to a certain degree, it gets to the topic of how much is school supposed to teach you? What is the goal of public school?
I think. Well, we should have invited my mom on here or something, because she's a public school teacher. She probably could have talked about this more, but she does teach elementary. I think in high school is when they probably should be teaching you a little bit more, because people are getting their first cars or getting their first jobs, and you don't really know too much. I think, imagine if they taught us how to interview for a job. How much more useful that would have been. I
remember having a speech. Okay.
Speech also, is different. Then.
Okay, well, two things. Take two layers of this under a grain of salt. One, we didn't go to a regular school. We went to a magnet school.
What if other schools actually had more electives? We're just talking out of our butts.
I always felt regular public schools felt bigger, and they had more options.
More to offer.
But they were lower
quality.
I wanted to go for quality too, but I didn't want to offend anyone. But it's just when you have so much quantity of students, by definition, the quality has to go down for teaching. Just because there's only so much attention you can give a single student.
They're probably bigger. The class sizes.
Mm-hmm. So I know our school was heavy on academics,
Yeah.
and it was geared towards college success. So like it was understood that the goal was to get you from public school, from like your early like schools, into a college degree of some kind.
You know, and this is maybe like a tiny bit of a tangent, so I won't go too deep, but I just wanted to say something. There are times where I wish I would not have gone to a magnet school. I met one of my best friends there. I still talk to her, you know, and I'm happy because
Hold on. Shout out to Roberta. That is the friend that Kimberly is talking about.
Yes, it is, Roberta.
And her flat earthers.
Anyways, okay, we're not gonna get into that, but I don't regret that because I know I met her, and I are still really good friends. But I wish I would have gotten a little bit more well-roundedness, because like I couldn't do sports, I couldn't do music, I couldn't do like any of the other things that maybe a public school would have offered. And maybe and this is our experience, like maybe there's some people yelling at their, you know, phone or computer screens being like, I was able to do this. Like I know a little bit because my brother went to a normal high school, and he got to do like his FFA classes, he did sports. And I wouldn't say when I was younger I envied it, like even in college and like right after college. But now, you know, being in my 30s, I'm like, you know, what if it would have been cooler going? But then I would have known you still. Like we still would have known each other, because we didn't start talking in high school. We started talking in college. Middle school is when we met. Not even because we went to the same school. We just ran in similar circles. And then in college, because of those similar circles, we started talking. So I feel like we still would have gotten together. You know,
Perhaps.
So end of tangent. I don't know if a bigger high school would have more to offer than our small magnet schools did. That's what I'm trying to say. So we have a very limited experience, because what if, like I said, other schools had more to offer than our schools did to us?
Yeah. So I asked Google here. I just typed, what is the goal of public school in Texas? Right? So here is what AI overview
Gemini.
is. Yeah, so Gemini
Shout out
says
to our old episode.
the primary goal of public schools in Texas is to ensure all children have access to quality education that enables them to reach their full potential and participate in the social, economic, and educational opportunities of the state and nation.
So if you think about it, that can be a lot, because I think if that's the goal of public school, then we should know how to change a tire. Maybe not, because maybe we can use Fixie.
I just feel like that's just too broad.
It is really broad. Maybe we should know how do credit scores work. Maybe I'm wrong, Mom and Dad, don't get mad at me. I don't remember my parents talking to me about credit scores really, like until I was a lot older. Like a few years after my college degree.
That makes me really mad, because you have a better credit score than me. And
Yeah.
my parents definitely.
My parents like told me kind of like, okay, you need to do this and this, but I didn't necessarily know how my credit score worked. Like, you know, I knew credit was a thing. I'm not saying I didn't, and my parents did talk to me about that, but I didn't know how it worked, because I remember being like, you need to buy this credit card and buy this and buy that and buy this. You don't have to buy a bunch of stuff to have good credit. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my experience, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, and it's wild, because you'll go and they'll be like, your credit's not as good. Maybe you should try getting a loan. If you get a loan, that'll increase your credit. And like it is definitely playing with fire, because like I get it. Like the whole point is you're increasing your buying power, and when you get out a loan, it signals to the credit bureaus that somebody was willing to lend you money, therefore you're a more trustworthy person, right? But if you give people who don't know how credit works more money, they're more than likely going to spend said money, because they're still
spend it wisely.
Yeah, they're still in the learning phase of their financing.
Yeah.
Or their finances.
Yeah.
And then you just give them this line of credit that they don't know. They're just going to use it.
Like,
and then they have to pay it back, and it's a new line of credit that they didn't factor into their daily expenses.
Their budgeting. Yeah. You know, you say that, and I thought about this a few years ago. I cannot believe that 17, 18 years old, we're given the power to take out these giant loans for college. I think college is important. I don't think it's for everybody, but I think it's important. But I also don't think that teenagers, you're giving this power to by letting them get a bunch of loans, and they don't know how it's going to affect them in the future.
Do you know that wasn't the case before?
What do you mean?
There used to be a system where you would go to college for free, and then the university would tag your paycheck after you graduated. So
I wonder if I would have preferred that or not. I don't know.
It makes sense. The difference is that they didn't make enough money as they would otherwise.
But because the loans have more interest.
And now they're held accountable to making sure that their students are getting jobs afterwards and that their students are graduating, right?
Yeah.
Before, it doesn't matter if your students graduated or not. They would make money regardless because you took out a loan. Versus the opposite, where they invested in their students.
Yeah.
They invested time so that they would get a return in the long haul, because then you output a doctor who makes $200,000 a year, and then you know that you're going to get that payment back.
Yeah.
Right? If you get a loan of $200,000 to go to med school, you become a doctor, and now you have a payment, part of your paycheck that goes straight to the university, just like child support or something.
Yeah.
Then it's for sure going to be good. But what if that doctor doesn't make it? Excuse me.
Yeah, and like loan companies, loan sharks, not loan sharks are the illegal ones, right? But that's what these loan places are, Sally Mae, Nailnet, and all those. Like we're not taught. And I know that you take I remember when I did my loans, you took an online course that explained this out to you. But I was in high school. I was kind of stupid. I just clicked through it. I didn't care to read through it. Nobody sat me down. I didn't listen to this in class, Sorry, Mom, because my mom was really good about this stuff, and I probably did not pay attention as much as I should have. But nobody sat us down and laid out the consequences. Because how do you do that to a teenager who wants to get out of their small town and will do anything to move away from home or have these big dreams? Because you're dreaming big when you're thinking about college, whether it's staying at home and going, or even leaving and going, or going out of state, going to even a different country in some people's choices. So I think it would be hard to teach kids, and a lot of it's on the parents. But what if your parents don't even know? And I think there needs to be a better way. I don't even think it should be like an elective. I think it should be mandatory, not even just student loans, but any type of loan, a car loan, a home loan. I think we should be taught what it is, because I remember going the first time to buy my first car. I didn't know how it worked. I just signed wherever they told me to sign. And I wish I would have known a little bit better to read the fine print, or okay, this is what this means. And this is what this is. This is what, what is it called? The gap insurance is. Mm-hmm. And this is what this is,
Yeah. But you're being an independent adult. All right. I think a lot of it is also when you're younger, you feel like I should be able to make these decisions, right? I am a full adult 18-year-old.
Rolling my eyes. I said the same thing when I was 18, so I'm rolling eyes at myself, not at anybody else who's in this situation right now, because I felt that way. And how are we? And this is a good reflection, not just what school didn't teach us. How are we as parents going to teach our child who's sleeping right here better?
I think it's part of, everybody always strives for this magical term called generational wealth, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. And everybody assumes that just means money handed down to you. Yeah. It's also tribal knowledge. Yeah. Knowledge that your parents pass down to you pass down to your kids. Things like how credit works. Things like how you're supposed to do your taxes so that you can claim the right claims and get the least amount deducted. These sort of things are things that parents teach their kids teach their grandkids, and it goes on and on. Mm-hmm. But if your family unit never learns it, then that ignorance also gets passed down over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So there has to be somebody who breaks the cycle and introduces that tribal knowledge to the family so that it can get passed down. But the kids also have to listen. Right? You as an 18-year-old should have listened to your parents when they were trying to tell you.
I wasn't a horrible teenager, I don't think. But I also wasn't the best listener. I've always been very independent, as you know, as my husband, this. And so I think how can, as a society, we build that, like, it's okay to ask for help or to learn things from, your parents, your elders, your, older friend or cousins or whoever the case may be. Because it's true, like, nobody teaches us about the loans. Who, in the budgeting too, like, who teaches us about all that stuff?
It's the minority of people, okay? Let's stop and acknowledge the fact that the majority of people don't have this tribal knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? It is a few that manage to break out of the machine of what it is in society and learn it very well so they can play it to their advantage. Mm-hmm. Right? So then you have that's the step one, right? That's the first acknowledgement. Second acknowledgement, media, and I'm going to start to sound like a nut here, but media caters to the majority, right? So you're trying to sell something. Someone's trying to sell you an album. Someone's trying to sell you watch minutes so you can watch an ad and they profit off you, right? So they're trying to get as many people as possible. So they're going to appeal to the dream, right? What is the dream of you spending money, popping bottles at the club?
YOLOing.
Be your own person. Don't listen to no one else. What do they know that you don't know? A lot, okay? People know a lot that you don't know, okay? But the majority of people, they're in the same boat, right? Like your mom might not know them more than you because she's in the same boat. She was working 3 jobs trying to get you and your siblings out the door to try to hopefully give you a better life, right? But then if you are consuming or you go hang out with the wrong kids, you get the wrong crowd, you become a stubborn, self-centered person, then you don't listen to what your parents would do. Or maybe your mom was just too tired to actually give you the advice, right? She just wasn't there too much, but she got you across. She raised you.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing. So you are consuming the media that tells you be your own independent person, go do what you want to do. Don't listen to anyone else. And then you make mistakes rather than listening to the people who already made those mistakes and learning from them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy nut, but like that's just how it is. It's like you are what you are surrounded by.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I also think, because this is the way I kind of taught, like when you're of a certain age, young, you have to kind of learn on your own because you don't like to listen to people. Unfortunately, most people aren't like you who learn from others' mistakes, because I think observing you over life, you also don't listen to people sometimes. I hope you acknowledge that.
I do, yes.
But when it comes to big picture things, you take from what other people have learned. We were talking a lot about money, so I kind of want to wrap this up with, like, we don't realize that money, and we don't learn this in school either, like thinking about what you invest in. Investing is not a word I heard in school at all. From my teachers, from my parents, I heard 401k and a pension, but I didn't know what that was.
No one has pensions anymore.
I know, but like I've heard the word. That's what I'm saying, is I heard the word in school. And even if you think about it, like, how are you going to live after you finish working? Mm-hmm. I think that's something that you should think about. Nobody likes thinking about getting older, especially when you're 18. But I think it's super valuable, because now, as almost 30-year-old, like, we're having to think, okay, what are we going to do? Investments for her, for us, for our future. And that's not just a 401k. That's more, that's more than just like the one, type of investment that your work could possibly set aside for you, but not all the time. That's not even every job does it anymore. Before, I think, in other generations, that was very normal. Like, they put something away for their employees, pensions, 401ks, whatever. Now, some places do not offer that. Or what if you do like freelance work, side hustle work? That's not something that they talk about. And even like the actual possibility of being a side hustle gig worker.
Yeah, because you also have to think about, like, the school system works on just like our election system, right?
Very old
they have
mindset.
They have cycles where they vote on things and changing the curriculum and banning books and all of these things, all of that causes a lag in terms of updating what the students learn.
Yeah.
So by the time you go out in a public school system, you're already behind.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people opt for private school, because the private school system has a lot more freedom to teach what they feel is valuable.
Yeah. So besides money, because we've been talking like a lot about money and, that kind of things. What about other things that schools don't teach us?
Well, evidently, schools didn't teach me how my insulin levels directly affect my, hormone count to gain body weight. That's something I learned later on how, why health. Yeah, why eating sugary treats were bad. They just said don't do it. Yeah.
Not even don't do it, because I remember having real bad snacks at the snack bar. Constantly. Pizza, hot fries with cheese on top. They didn't teach us how to eat a balanced meal. And again, this could come from your parents, but we're talking about this in what if you don't have that at home? They
teach you the 4 basic food groups and all the basic information, right? But no one teaches,
it wasn't in practice.
No one taught me this is an ideal meal that you should learn how to cook for yourself. And if your parents aren't around and you need to cook something for yourself, this is a great thing. They're just eat an apple. And an apple's also not good. There's a bunch of sugar in an apple.
Well, I think, that's a whole other thing. I think fruit is good for you. Okay,
yes, fruit is good for you, but I mean, there's a limit, right? Imagine I sat down and I'm man, I'm starving and I eat 5 apples. I think I'm being healthy. I'm consuming a ton of sugar. That's not true.
You gotta eat balanced. Gotta add some almond butter in there or something.
Exactly.
Some celery. But yeah, so health-wise, I remember them being you need to lose weight or you need to do this, but they didn't teach us that everyone's bodies are different. Like you were saying, how, somebody's going to react differently to eating white bread versus somebody who has to eat, wheat. Or what if you have a gluten allergy?
Right.
We weren't taught those different, things. Or I think for me too, exercising, everyone had different exercise levels and they all held everyone to the same standard.
Yes, I agree.
And that's school in general. Everyone, I think, is different in the way they learn, the way they test, the way they exercise, and that we should. I mean, it's hard for public school to cater to every student.
That's right.
But I wish they would have given us the tools to maybe figure it out on our own.
All right, so let's get controversial.
Oh gosh.
What if instead of having one giant public school, we subsidize the resources that are going to public schools and make smaller private schools that you as a parent get to allocate those funds to a school where you feel the values that you think are being pushed forward?
Well, I know that I could be remembering wrong. My mom, I think, told me that when I left to SCISD that she was able to move her taxes to go to that school district and then just moved back when I finished that school.
Okay.
Something like that. But yeah. Are you talking about the whole coupon thing that the vouchers that State of Texas is doing for private schools?
I don't know enough about it to have an opinion, but if it is what it sounds like, I'm intrigued.
Some people are saying they're not good, but I don't have enough knowledge to talk about it, and I don't think you do either, because we probably should, though, because we have a child now who's going to eventually go to school, and you probably need to look into that. So,
I mean, I think there's a good thing to bring up, at least. In Texas, there's a bill that may or may not read up on it. Maybe Kimberly, you can pull it up while I talk about it. It sounds like it's allowing citizens in Texas to not have to pay the property tax that goes to education and instead receive it as a credit to pay for private schooling.
It says, Texas legislature is currently considering a private school voucher bill, a key priority for Greg Abbott. The proposed voucher program would establish education saving accounts, ESAs, funded by taxpayer dollars that families could use for private school tuition and other educational expenses. Bottom line, sounds good, right? But the program would be capped at $1 billion for the first 2 years. House Bill 3 proposes that most participating students would receive an amount equal to 85% of the state and local funding that public schools receive per student. With the additional funds for students with disabilities, this amount is roughly $10,893 annually. I don't understand what this is. I'm trying. Okay, so arguments for increase parental choice. So advocates that the vouchers will allow parents to choose best educational environment for their children. Support low income and special needs students. So this emphasizes that the program will provide opportunities for students who might not otherwise have access to private schooling. And vouchers could create competition between public and private schools, potentially driving overall education improvement. Those are the arguments for. Arguments against. Impacts on public school funding. Critics express concerns that vouchers would divert resources away from public schools.
Yes.
Potential for inequality. Opponents argue that the voucher program may not provide equal access to all students, particularly those in rural areas with limited access to private schools. Separation of church and state. Some critics argue that the public school funds for private, often religious schools could violate the principle of separation of church and state.
Because the funds from the state
Could
would
go
be
to like religious,
religious
private schools that are churches, basically.
What is that though? Like,
I am a proponent of separation of church and state, but as a parent, if you want your child in that environment, you should have that choice.
right? Like,
I think so.
Okay, I feel like this is a good place to be like First Amendment right? You have your right to religion, right? So if your funds are coming from the state to spend on education, now you have the right to allocate those funds to a school of the religious affiliation of your choice. I mean, right now people might be getting upset because I know Catholic schools are a big thing, but like, what about Muslims? What about Jewish schools? What about any Buddhist schools? Any other religion?
I don't know if they. I don't know if they have that. I wouldn't know.
Right, because it's not popular enough, right?
Yeah.
There's not accessibility to it. So
Yeah.
this bill might actually allocate some funds for opportunities for a competing religious school that doesn't. It's not just a Catholic school, right?
Do you really think that like
I
the
don't.
society we live in, they'll let them have like a Muslim school?
No, probably not. But I mean, it's just the philosophy of it, right? You know, the thought experiment of walking through, like saying you're telling me no because of separation of church and state. Like, the separation of church and state is to allow the church to influence decisions being made in the state. This seems like decisions being made in the state are going to get influenced, are going to give influence to the church. It's the other way around.
I guess.
Right? Like, it means that the state would be supporting a church.
So my issue with this, and I don't even like the religious aspects of it, is the potential of removing funding for public schools. Because again, my mom is a public school teacher. I think public schools are super important. I know that there is a lot lacking in certain public school systems, but I think public school is super, super important.
Would you agree that public school is the bare minimum, though?
It's the bare minimum, but sometimes it doesn't even.
If you go into a car dealership and they give you the same car, but it's the base model.
Listen, I'm not saying I'm going to send our child to certain public schools, but as a whole,
teachers don't even like teaching in public schools.
Yeah.
So like this is a consequence of a broken system. Like I don't think it is a big touchy subject to say that public school systems are not the best. Like
Yeah.
I think this is a fact at this point.
And I think that children in underprivileged areas are going to suffer from this. From that, what you're saying, like how it's the bare minimum or even sometimes less than that. I think it's the school district's responsibility and the state's responsibility to fix it. I don't think it should be put on the child or like that it's their fault or the parents' fault or they need to figure it out. I think this is a whole thing off topic, right? But I think school districts need to do better. They need to stop paying their superintendents $300K. First of all, if you're a parent with a student, hold on.
What value is a superintendent bringing? I mean, I'm okay with superintendents earning $300K.
I'm not.
If they bring that amount of value.
They're not bringing value. They're taking like a stipends, or I think a stipends that the teachers get away from their teachers who have to work extra, who if they help students extracurriculars, they're not given extra paid time. they're not given like time when they're working on the weekends, or talking to students' parents on the weekends or over holidays, or if the child is sick and the parent is calling the teacher at 10 p.m. trying to figure out what they're missing. They're not giving them any extra things for that. But the superintendent, the higher ups in the district, they're getting all the perks. They're getting all the extra money because some people are like, oh, they might bring value. They don't bring value. They need to do better for their teachers. This is not to every school district, to every superintendent, but I think overall the state needs to have stricter laws and stricter, like they need to hold them accountable more.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it's one thing to be Jeff Bezos, billionaire, making tons of money, or Elon Musk, or literally any other tech startup CEO making a lot of money, because you're providing value to society to a degree. Like, yeah, you might be a controversial topic for a variety of reasons, but I can still order something and have it here the same day or delivered the next day.
And what if like your superintendent is making, let's say, 5 times the amount of the median, like average, the area that they're in, like they're well above what the median is in their area.
If it's $300K and his district is the highest performing district around,
or like
makes sense,
just the best accessibility for their students, their best accessibility to the most up-to-date curriculum, the most up-to-date facilities. But if their school is having problems with the toilets, or if they have books from the 90s, then I don't think that superintendent should be making that amount of money.
Yes, because I mean, you have to think about it, because I don't want to promote the idea that just because you have a high salary, you're the enemy, right? Most people who have a high salary provide a value that warrants that salary.
I think that's where you and I can differ, because I know you are like touchy subject, because like you work in the tech industry. This isn't the tech industry.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And that's a distinction that needs to be made, right?
It's the type of industry you're in.
It's the free market versus bureaucrat environment, right?
The superintendents vote, like, I think they're voted in.
Yeah. So in the bureaucratic environment, every dollar needs to make sense why it's there and where it's going to, right? But the thing is, the decision is made via votes, not data-driven decisions.
It should be data-driven decisions.
Exactly. So why is this superintendent making $300K? Oh, because we all voted for it. What? No.
Yeah.
In any other job, Walmart just passed a thing I was reading that their partners or their employees can have a base salary of up to like $1 million now, from like $500K to $1 million.
Dang.
But that is usually the regional managers. So like these managers are managing like 10 stores within different state areas. It requires a high capacity of travel, and they are held responsible for the performance of every store they oversee.
Yeah.
Right. And then that individual, by keeping all their stores in check, is making Walmart a ton of money, way more than their salary in money, by keeping all those stores in check. So therefore, their salary is justified based in value. Yeah. It's a reflection of the value they provide. Versus, we all voted and we said yes.
Yeah.
That is not a good idea.
Yeah. We went to a tangent, and again, like I've said multiple times in this podcast, my mom is a public school teacher. My comments are my own though, not hers. So I think that it's important to bringing this back to what we're talking about, like who decides what the students are learning, who is going to support the students, because I think at the end of the day, that's really what matters. And I don't want to end there. I want us to talk a little bit more, because that was a whole other side thing. But I want to talk about maybe another part of school, and that's not just the money or, like you said, physical health. What about like the emotional intelligence or mental health, or how to navigate relationships?
Look, all I know is that I've met some adults that are emotionally still in high school. Like they weren't taught to grow emotionally and handle their feelings.
Yeah.
And now they're in the workplace being hostile and playing by cliques and acting like it's still in high school.
And how, like, I wonder, because this is a question, I guess, more than anything. How would you even teach that? Or
how would you approach that? Like, sit everybody in a room. Like it just sounds like if you tried to integrate that into the regular public school system, you'd have like some Severance style like lesson where y'all sitting in a chair, passing the ball to another player.
Have a melon party.
Yeah.
A waffle party. Yeah. I don't know, but I think it's not even about that. I think it's like how to manage your own emotions. Like not just teaching about, how.
We all have a school nurse, but do we have a school therapist?
Yeah.
Is that the counselor?
It's supposed to be the counselor, but all our counselor did. The counselor was great. I'm not going to lie. But
I feel like the counselor just helped me with like fill out college applications.
Yeah, I agree. But I think it'd be cool to see in schools, like how to manage stress and how to know when you're burning out, because some people don't know when they're burning out. I'm looking at you, Sergio.
Who, me?
Don't know how to manage stress. And I think that could be good. And I think it's not even teach them how to do it. I think recognize that's something that could happen to you as you get older. Because as we get older, sometimes more stress is going to fall in our laps. When you move out on your own, when you decide to have a career in a new city, when you start a family, like you have to learn that stress is going to happen and burnout can happen, and how to recognize that and how to maybe manage that, or where to go when you start feeling that way.
How to ask for help.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people feel like that they have the responsibility to act in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And if they can't perform that way, that they're in the wrong.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, no, that's why we live in a society. It's okay to ask for help when you need it.
Yeah.
You're not expected to do everything all by yourself. Yeah, you are responsible to get things done. That doesn't mean you can't ask for help to ensure the delivery of these things,
Yeah, exactly. Because like, if you think about it, because I think for me, I did not learn emotional intelligence in high school. I learned it a little bit more in college.
It's really strange, because I would say that's one of the reasons I married you. You're very emotionally intelligent, like way more than I am.
I did not learn that in high school. I would say high school when I was probably like the most problematic emotionally intelligence wise. And I did not learn that until I was a lot older, going through a lot of hoops, going through a lot of just hard times, like kind of having to learn that on my own. But I think, you have to recognize that, like you said, like ask for help, know where your support systems lie. And it's not that school has to be your support system. It's like rely on your family. Or if you can't rely on your family, like, these are these groups or these are these phone numbers. Even like what anxiety and depression might look like. Because I think nowadays, kids, adults, everybody, it's like, it's because I'm anxious and I'm a diagnosed anxiety, but you don't have diagnosed anxiety.
Self-diagnosed anxiety.
Yeah. Self-diagnosed anxiety. I'm sorry. And I think you should know where to go, because if you do have that, then you need to get the help, but don't just say, I have this. I have that. And then blame it for being a shitty person, mm-hmm. Blame it for not, holding up, being accountable. Like, what's that movie we saw where the girl was like, I have phone anxiety and I can't make a phone call.
Oh my God. Yes.
And so I think it's like, okay, well, you need to deal with that problem, because if you're going to function in society, you need to learn how to pick up the phone and talk to people. You can't use that as an excuse. And I think a lot of the times people will, because they didn't learn how to manage these things, manage the stress, manage the anxiety, they use it as an excuse to not be a good person.
And that's where I was going to. Like, yes, I understand the wanting to teach people awareness on mental health.
Oh, yeah.
But I also wouldn't want to present it in a way where it gets used as a crutch. Where, no, I can't do this because it makes me anxious. Rather than, okay, well, it makes you anxious, but despite that, you still push through it.
Yeah.
And, function.
Like if you have a certain, I don't like talking to people a lot, you probably should not become a therapist or a counselor, right? Mm-hmm. You should maybe go into different types of careers. But no matter what job you have to talk to other people, or you have to deal, social, going to the grocery store, you talk to people. But if you're so crippled in this that you can't go outside, then that's something you need to recognize and deal with.
Right.
So is school going to teach us that? I don't know.
It's just a lot of topics to try to squeeze. So like, is this sort of, how are other countries solving this? Like what is the like Spain or Switzerland, like Netherlands, what do their public school systems look like? Right?
Apparently they're better than ours. I mean, I don't know that, like, in all honesty. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Who
Do we
knows?
just like need to reallocate some funds from, the nuclear missile silos over to the education system so that we can, revamp it and make it more useful for every day? But again, you're just going to get bogged down in bureaucracy anyway, trying to get that budget approved. Like it all comes down to costs
Yeah.
and money
Yeah.
and who's going to get paid what amount.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, I understand the necessity of education, right? And public school system is the minimum bar, right? Just like how if you get in an accident or something, there's a minimum standard of care, regardless of whether you have insurance or not. Like that, you're gonna get some treatment, right? You are gonna I think there's like a universal right to water. Like you in a restaurant, they can't charge you for water if you ask for water.
Tap
Something like
water,
that.
yes. Uh-huh.
Like it's a minimum standard of living, but then you have to pursue something higher.
Yeah.
All right, but we also have to acknowledge that like there's a minimum standard, and then you build on that.
Yeah.
So maybe the choice or the answer is not to rely on the public school system to solve every single one of these problems, but maybe open up an avenue where the public school system is the base, and then other schools can build on top of that for the very specific needs. A kid with rich parents that have multi-generational wealth is going to have very different needs than a first-generation immigrant child who barely speaks English. And if you stick them in the same school and you force the rich kid's parents to pick public school and not let this bill go through because you want your kid who lives in the same area to have access to the same resources because you're paying taxes that way, and because that's how that gets calculated. I mean, like that, no one's a winner there. Like both people are losing because your kid, is going to a school with higher resources, but they're not targeted to him. And then this other kid is in a very different point in their generational life than your kid. So like no one's winning here. Everyone's just stuck in a system that sucks until they graduate.
What is the saying? Equity, not necessarily equality. Is that the saying? I could be wrong. I hope I'm saying that right. But I think there should be different avenues, like you're saying, to different people. But I do think everybody should have access to the best quality, whether that's private or public.
So if your government is giving you the resources, right? It's legally requiring you to complete a certain set of education, right? And provides it for you, right? Every county has a legal school system assigned to it, right? Would you not say that because you are legally required to go to it and you have a base for it, that to participate in later stage programs of the government, holding you to that basic requirement of completing public school to be a good thing? Did I lose you there? Did I make that too long?
That was a lot. The way you worded that was kind of strange.
So basically, TLDR, using plain language, the government is subsidizing public education, right? And it's illegal for you not to send your kid to some sort of school education, right? We all know that, right? Anti-child labor laws and that kind of thing. So if we have all these requirements for kids to go through public school, why wouldn't we force that as a requirement to participate in our later stage education, local elections, later elections, that type of thing? We're giving people, we're legally enforcing a minimum standard of education, yet when it comes to actually actively participating, we don't enforce that you have had that completed.
Oh, I know where you're getting with this. This is that argument, or that argument. This is the
There's a lot of people out there who choose to, or who choose to not continue past high school.
Yeah.
And they get to go and involve themselves in the same systems that the rest of everybody who did comply with those requirements do.
Well,
So I guess it's a thought-provoking question, but all I know is that it's not going to go for one cycle to get this question answered. You know,
Yeah.
we're going to definitely have to keep iterating on our school systems.
yep.
And then one day, hopefully, we come to an answer that at least moves us forward. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for episode
15.
of the Partnered Up Podcast. I'm Sergio.
And I'm Kimberly.
See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.